Today, the discussion, the workshop is going to be around how to find business solutions tailored to the African markets, the needs of the African market. I think this is a big topic over here because we have a lot of ideas, a lot of wishes, but Ejike is going to help us figure out sort of the process. Are those fantasies or do those ideas really have legs? There are going to be three sections for this workshop. The first one is we're going to get to know our guest today, Ejike, a little bit better, know about his background, where he was, what he's doing now, why he made the move, how he made the move, all like good stuff. Get some nugget from him that we can learn and implement to our own journey. The second pillar of this workshop is going to be around problem solving cases. You guys are familiar with it. We essentially have Ejike help us understand, sorry, uh, essentially put us in a real life situation, right? Situation that he had faced throughout his journey that we, because we're still in the diaspora, because we haven't crossed that bridge, we don't anticipate, we have no idea. So we're just going to go through it. We're going to go into rooms. We're going to try and do some problem solving and really trying to work together, figure it out. And then when we come back out, he's going to enlighten us and give us some tips on how to change our thinking process, change our mindset from being overseas or abroad to wanting to do something in Africa or with Africa. And the last piece is an open Q&A. So from that perspective, you guys can go ahead and pose your specific question that we haven't addressed during today's, prior to the Q&A. Now, in terms of the man of the hour, AGK, I'm just going to touch on some highlights of your experience, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong or where I got it wrong. So, founder and CEO of Ifin, is it Ifin or Ifin Health?
Ifyan Health.
Ifin Health, thank you, sir. Ifin Health. They have about 21 plus or minus employees, created about 5 years ago, but really 2 years ago, that's where the wheels got spinning. Their expertise is orthopedics and pharmaceutical, and there are three pillars, right? Orthopedics, pharmaceutical, and uh, advisory, so consulting services, based out of Nigeria. His story is that he spent most of his adolescence and education in the States, between the Midwest and the West, working 4 different continents and across 20 different countries. Um, what else? Offices in Lagos, Dubai, and San Francisco. I believe you're gonna correct me on this one. I believe you have a hidden office on the east side of the continent, Kenya. So that's what I
Yes,
got. Please go ahead and set the record straight here, just to make sure I'm not lying. I'm just gonna give you about 1 or 2 minutes to add to that, and then we'll carry on.
yeah, no worries. Thanks so much, Aris. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with this group. And thanks, I see Serge is on the line as well. He's on voice, on mute, but thanks to Serge as well, who introduced me to you, Aris. So it's been an honor, definitely, to discuss with you guys for some time. A few house rules, as I mentioned, I usually look a little better, right? So I apologize earlier. I haven't had a haircut in, weeks of coronavirus lockdown. So I wouldn't, to stay at home is what I say, right? So, but I try to clean up a little bit. So apologies that I'm not looking my best, but at this point, it doesn't matter. I'm safe. I'm glad you guys are all doing well. So thanks for making time for this session. Definitely a privilege to engage with folks, professionals in multiple parts of the world. We have Germany, we have Canada, we have the US, and I'm sure that colleagues will join at some point. So yes, as Eris mentioned, I'm Nigerian by birth. So grew up here as a kid. Finished high school here, and then college was in the US, in Missouri. The initial plan was to go to medical school. In fact, I started medical school in Nigeria, did a year medical school in Nigeria, and then moved to the US. I knew just to start all over again. So finished my first degree, and then the plan was, do some research, and then go to med school. So I applied to med school, got into med school, turned it down, right? I went to business school instead. So I went to got my MBA from Indiana, and I was done with the code, right? So I've done Missouri, Indiana. Between them, I was in Cleveland. I was in Ohio. So I ran away to California, right, after business school. Joined a company called Abbott. And as he mentioned, had a opportunity to work for a couple of years and had a chance to really explore multiple roles, multiple opportunities. And as Darius mentioned, got a chance to work on 4 continents, 20 countries, but it wasn't by default, it wasn't by accident, it was all planned out. Because my challenge to myself was that, I felt that, there are very few African businesses that are multi-generational. So my question to myself was, what do I have to get there? And my answer was, better learn how it works, right? And to learn how it works, I had to move around. So that's a high level of my background. So after checking off multiple roles and places, I was quit and then do this full time. But before I started this full time, I started this on the side. So I was running like my night job, right? Had one employee at the time, still doing my day job, saving up money, getting experiences, and then eventually was able to pivot that into this. So yes, we have legal entities in Nigeria, in the US, in Kenya, Clara from Kenya as well. And we're quite diversified, right? Because we're really trying to manage our risks accordingly. So that's a high level. I'll get into more details as time goes on.
Perfect.
To you.
Excellent. Thank you. Now let's just switch gears a little bit, right? There are, for the purpose of making this workshop as efficient as possible, the very first question that I really want to get into, which is really interesting to all of us, is around finding opportunities in back home, essentially in Africa, whichever country we're talking about, right? We know it's complex, the environment is complex, the opportunities are, the process of finding opportunities may be different than what we know on this side. So we know that you are in the health space, more precisely in orthopedics. Can you walk us through your process going from ABOT, wherever you were, how did you find that opportunity and how did you validate it? But really, I'm looking at it from a perspective where, how can I leverage your process, leverage your experience to be able to find my own or to validate mine? So essentially, long story short, how did you come up with that niche and validate it?
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. So for me, and so I'll speak briefly about my journey, and then I will share my thoughts about other people's journeys as well. So for me, I was really in healthcare. I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. I knew my startup would be in healthcare. There was no doubt whatsoever, right? And I was working at Abbott, who was about 127 years old company now, started by one guy, right? His name was Abbott. And I asked myself, why don't we have Africans that have companies that are 125 years old, right? So I knew I wanted to compete with this guy, dead, long dead. I wanted to make sure that I wanted to compete with that, right? But I wanted to do something that did not interfere with my day job for my own personal ethics. So I looked into what are sectors of healthcare that are in demand, but have been ignored by most multinationals. That was how I started my journey. So I asked myself, you want to be in healthcare, you don't want to do anything that your day job does, so that there is no conflict of interest. So I avoid that completely. And the next question was, what are areas in healthcare that have been avoided by or ignored by most multinationals? And that got me to orthopedics was one of them. Second was women's health, right? Women's health is big in the West, but in Africa it's quite different. So my pharma interest is women's health. And then the third one was advisory. Advisory because I realized that what makes companies succeed is the fundamentals of business. And most African businesses do not have those fundamentals. So that advisory spans across everything from soap to oil, right? From detergents or from, fast moving consumer goods to whatever. Business is business, right? So I help myself and appreciate that in business, you're doing two things. You have a service and or a product that you want somebody to pay you money for. It's that simple, right? So that's the three things we do. So we do orthopedics, we do pharma, interest in that, and then we have interest and an advisory as well. So that was my journey and what guided my view.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. I want to be a little bit more specific. So I'm based out of Toronto, Canada. I'm looking for an opportunity back home anywhere on the continent. How do I
Okay.
go about um, finding you? You know for a fact that you wanted to be in the health space? That's fine. How did you? And the health space is such a wide industry. How were you
Yes.
able to pinpoint that orthopedics was the one, right? So how if I'm over here on the west side, or anyways outside of Africa, how do I go
Okay.
ahead and validate, or how did you validate that or find
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, great point, Aris. There are two groups of people. On one hand, you have the group that already have their idea locked in. They know what they want to do, they know what sector they want to be in, and they are trying to validate that. On the other hand, there are those that have multiple ideas, not quite locked in yet, but still exploring a couple ideas. So I'll start with group one. If you are in Toronto, Canada, or either is in New York City, or Khadija is in, I don't get where she's at right now. Clara is in Germany, and you're trying to validate ideas, you're already confirmed ideas. Two things are critical: feasibility studies, market assessment, really, really important, right? And what I call how much gas do you have in the tank to run, because it will cost you a lot of money and resources. The first one, after the feasibility assessment, is it's really important for this idea that you have locked in to make sure it will work. Most assessments are done with the view of the West, right? You want to launch a business that sells water. And in the US, water comes in at home, right? And you want to do that in Nigeria, for example. The reality is that you need to understand, what does water needs look like in Nigeria, or in Cameroon, or in Kenya, or in Ivory Coast, right? Or in Burkina Faso, because they vary. So that idea you have locked in, I would say, validate it on the continent, on the ground, make sure it makes sense, make sure that that's what people really need. Now, for the other group that is still thinking about ideas, the group B, what I would say is spend some time on the continent, and it might help you confirm which idea you want to lock in to pursue. Because there are multiple realities that can give you that eureka moment to really confirm which you want. Iris, does that get to answer the question you asked?
Yes, that's okay. I wanted to push it a little bit more. If you could give me a practical example, okay? And I didn't mean to spend that much time on it, but I think this is really crucial, right? Because a lot of us, we do have ideas based on either our passions, our experience, our profession. And then you gave me a good tip. You said either you have an idea, you want to implement it, move back, or go back to whichever country. But how did you find out yours, orthopedics?
So for me, after I looked at what my old company did, Abbott does pharmaceuticals, medical devices, diagnostics, and nutrition. Those were not on the table for me anymore. I did not want to do that. Then I looked into what are other areas that are on the table, right? That I could start when I was still working at Abbott. Now when I'm no longer with Abbott, I could do whatever I want. I have no clause to limit me from doing that. So for me, I said, okay, what else in healthcare? And I looked into multiple pathways, multiple channels in healthcare. And I asked myself, what keeps people up at night? What are the pain points? Now, when you have malaria, you can take medicine, and people are used to it. When you lose your leg or a hand, it's massive. You want your limb back. So we do now, one of our big key pillars now, we provide orthopedic limbs. So we are not orthopedics as surgery and so forth, no. Because there are lots of surgeons out there. But we provide artificial limbs. We give you a hand, a leg, or both that's functional. We go from basic ones to high-end ones. And that is a space that nobody was working on. So for me, it was, what healthcare sectors are available? Where are people already playing in? Where are there gaps? Which one can give enough revenue, right? And there were a couple of options, but I chose orthopedic rehabilitation because you have about 100,000 amputees every year in Nigeria. right? You have about 1.6 million Nigerians living in amputation, living loss. Right? There are vastly, it's a big market, but there are few opportunities. Sorry,
Okay,
few clinics. I saw this. So that was how I worked through this.
perfect. Thank you. This is good. I want to switch gears now to, okay, now you have identified your sort of opportunity, really. You pinpointed it to orthopedics. Can you touch
Yeah.
on some, if not one of the biggest mistakes you made returning from abroad back into Nigeria from a business standpoint? Something that you didn't anticipate, right? Something that really were like, whoa, okay, I didn't see that coming, right? Some
Yeah.
just basically to enlighten us on that process.
Well, I mean, Aries, there are too many of them, right? I mean, I mean, the mistakes I've made is, I have a notepad here. I think most of this notepad is a bunch of mistakes, right? It's been crazy, but I will touch on one that still hurts. One is not appreciating the impact of exchange rate changes on a continent. So years ago, when I started this, the first few years, I was still my day job at the time. So I was earning dollars, my day job, and I was using my savings to fund my business, right? My startup. And there was a time that I was able to, because of my profile, my relationships, I had credit terms with my suppliers. At the time, so for Aries and Serge, we have talked about what I do, but for the rest, we started with just selling products, components to people that fabricate limbs. Now we have the best fabrication center in West Africa. So we started with just sales to patient care. We have horizontally integrated. So we have the components and we have the clinic that actually take care of patients, right? Before the clinic started, as a company selling these components to other clinics around, I had credit terms with my partners in Europe, which means they sell to me or they supply to me, I sell, get some revenue, and pay them back. And there was a time that the Naira got from 200 to 365. I'm sure somebody here is a math genius. I figured out the percentage difference from 200 to 365, right? So I bought at 200 Naira to $1, and it's applied to me. And I bill my patients, my customers, clinics at that rate with my small margin, not much. Before the things actually landed, it was wild. That the Dutch rate was more than, at the point, got to 400. It balanced back to 365, but it was up to 400 at the point. Now, I'm selling at the exchange rates of 200. So people are paying me, if the price of the item is €1 or $1, I need 200 Naira to capture that one, to buy $1 to pay my suppliers. It turned out eventually I had to jump to 400, that I had to get 2x of local currency to pay for that steel price.
I'm gonna ask you to jump into the mistake. So I understand the context quickly. What did you do wrong?
Because I didn't realize, so I placed the order, got supplied, and stocked my storehouse, my inventory, my warehouse, right? And I was selling currency at a loss. Every single thing was a loss. But it was too late because I already brought in the country. I already had a price list on that exchange rate. So every single sales was a loss. And that's why it's still hustle today, because I lost so much money then. Now, fortunately, I was still having a day job that could balance out. So I was still getting paid in dollars, right, with my day job at the time. So I didn't go bankrupt. But it was a massive loss of resources, massive.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Thanks, Jake. I wouldn't have thought about it, to be honest with you. So, thanks for sharing that. Then the next question is: now you move back, and then you mentioned this. So there's a lot of mistakes you made and tough times. Have you ever gotten to a point where you're like, man, I just want to move back, man. This is a lot harder than I thought. And if you did, what keeps you going? Why are you not, packing your bag and then boom, I'm out? What keeps you going?
No, great question.
I mean, assuming that you can legally move back to the States, right?
No worries. So the thing is, I'm dual citizen, so I'm Nigerian American citizenship. So either passports, I could go wherever, right? It's a great point. And there are many times I'm like, dude, man, what's wrong with you? Literally. It's very tough. It's very rough. From power outages to issues with the system. The system does not work the way it works in the West. It's different. We all know that. So I wouldn't bore anybody here with how the African realities are. But what keeps me going, what kept me going, and what I hope will keep me going is a couple of things. One is I always believe that my dreams, my legacy is more than what someone else can give me. I believe that I have to write my dreams, my legacy. At least I'll try. Now I might fail, fair enough, but I know that I tried. Right. So despite the good life of corporate America, despite the benefits and perks, it was someone else that gave it to me. Right. So I really wanted to try to build my own dreams. That's one. Two is Africa is the last emerging market. While we are in the West complaining, pointing fingers, seeing the problems, others see opportunities. The Chinese, the Indians, the Syrians, the Lebanese, pick a country, they are here and they are creating value. And thanks to colonization, we actually give them more respect. I've seen Syrians who have no country because Bashar al-Assad is bombing them in Syria. They land in Ghana, in Kenya, in Nigeria, and we call them white people. It's bullshit. But that's what we do, right? So I refuse to not compete on my own continent because I truly think that we have 4 or 5 years. Next 5 years will be too late. Next 5 years, they have taken over. I didn't want to be on the sidelines.
No pressure for us who's still on this side of the world.
What did you say?
No pressure for us. We're still on this side of the world, 4 or 5 years, okay?
I'm saying, man, y'all need to come back, honestly, because that's a fact. I mean, go to the airport every day. The Indians are rushing, the Chinese, for Khadija from Ivory Coast, the French still run French West Africa. If you land in Abidjan tomorrow, there's a French gendarme policeman at the airport. I used to run Choco West Africa, my old company. You land in Ivory Coast in Abidjan, so there is a French policeman, French white gendarme at the airport, opposite from the black, right? So it's a mess across the continent, and I really think that we need to really step up and own our narratives. So that's
Appreciate it, man. Thanks. At least now we're clear on why you are going to stay and fight through thick and things. Moving on to the second segment of this workshop is basically what I meant, what I said earlier, which is the case study. So, JK, I'll let you set the stage for us. This is the first case that we discussed about, which is around how to get a license. So give us the context because you basically been through it and probably still going through it, and we're going to let folks go into the room. So if you could take about 30, 45 seconds to set the stage for us and present the context, the problem, and the options. Thanks.
All right. So this is the case, the license case, right?
Correct.
All right. Excellent. So guys, thanks so much. The case is that you want to start a business in a highly regulated environment, be it healthcare, be it the media, so it's somewhat regulated as well, be it some precious minerals, resources as well, it's quite regulated. And you want to get your license, right? The problem is, how do you go about to get this license? You spent your time in Canada, in the US, in Germany. Africa is a little different, right? You need a license to survive. Without a license of that oil field, you will not be able to sell oil, crude oil, for example. Without a license of healthcare, you can't import, right? The pharmacy board of, go ahead, Aris.
I'm just going to add to it and say quickly that you've tried it, right? You went through the process, you realized that the process is not as straightforward as it would be in the West. How do you go about obtaining your license? You have 3 options. The first one is bribe everybody, right? And essentially bully yourself through it. The second option, sorry, is take the time to build relationships with a key stakeholder, no matter if it's a department, ministry, or whatever the case may be, so that your case or your file just goes through quickly. Or number three, you insist on following the process and basically go by the rule, right? Any question before I send you guys into groups? You have to remember it. I don't. Yes.
Actually, hold on.
Go
Sorry to
ahead.
interrupt. So
Yes.
the option three is go by the process as it is in the West, right? So apply to FD in the US as a process, right? So we all educate in the West. We all live in the West. There is a process from 1 to 3. So one is bribe your way through. Two is spend time to build relationship, but you are, not around. So it might take a long time unless you are very connected with politics. Option three is insist that this is how it should work because that's how it works in Canada, in Germany, in the US. These are three
Okay.
options.
Perfect. So please remember the questions. I don't think I can send it back to the breakout rooms. It could be probably be in your chat. So let me set you guys up. All right. Looks like we're back together now. We all here? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, cool. We have two groups. Who wants to go? Actually, let me not ask the question. Let me call somebody up. Patrick, go ahead, man. What are you guys thinking in terms of options for getting your license when you get set up back home or in Africa, wherever you want to go?
Yeah, for us it was. I mean, the first one we were thinking is outright like bribery, where you go hardcore. You want to just bribe, give people money, and get your way through. And we largely thought that one is not a very good option. So we're really thinking more about a combination of the second and the third, where we can build a relationship based on family, friends, and also try and go through the process. But we acknowledge that going through the process in Africa is sometimes extremely difficult. But with some kind of networking and relationship, sometimes you can get your process a bit better than going entirely through the formal process.
So you go in option 2, build network relationships. Cool.
Yes.
From the other side, the other team, who wants to go? I don't even remember who was on the other team, to be honest. So
I can go.
okay, perfect. Go ahead. Thanks.
We discussed. I think it was number 2 as well for our team. Building relationships, but we also discuss the bribing side, because sometimes even if you have like a good relationships, there is a need to tip people sometimes along the way to go to get through the process, and you really need to be patient and build the relationships. Invest in the relationships is really important, and sometimes tip people to keep them around. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Khadija. Now, Ejeka, the man of the hour, let us know what are your thoughts around the answers that were provided based on your experience, and what are the things that we should be considering when it comes to all the other options. Go ahead.
Yeah, so no, great conversations. I knew it was very short. It's like a rushed case study analysis, but I like it because it makes us think quickly. So for group one, Patrick's group, where it was about a mix of number 2 and number 3, I see the value in that, right? So you build relationships, but also you try to keep it by the book, right? And you mix both. And that's great. We don't have as much time, and I look forward to having another discussion on this with the group. But a few things to bear in mind is, how long will it take to build a relationship? right? And how do you want to make it not drain your cash flow? So if you are, if you're not connected with anybody, how do you want to make it work? So for me, for example, I did that. I did number two as well. But what I did was before I started doing my job full time, I got my company to give me a role that was Africa role based out of Dubai. So I moved from the Bay Area to Dubai, and I was traveling 2 weeks a month to the continent. So I was able to use my old company, a global giant, to build my relationships. So I had meetings with the Ministry of Health in Nigeria. I had meetings at, the highest, the FDA in Ghana. I had meetings in Abidjan, right? I had meetings across, right? Because I had a big company on my back. So I used that big company to help me open doors to build a relationship. And then when I left, it was still me, different business card, still my face, right? So that was how I did that. So I did number two as well. But for the group, the question is, how do you want to get number two done? Because you don't want to spend 10 years to find that one person that matters. Sometimes you need a big name to get that person right away, right? So that's that. So solid idea, great, but also be sure that it can take you too long a time to get that done. So find the right strategy, the right network to speed up number two option, all right, while doing number three, which is something by the book. That's for group one. For group two, that was a mix of options 1 and 2. I see where you guys are coming from as well. 2 is critical, but like Khadija used a word I find interesting, tip, right? And it's very important that we talk about this as Africans, right? Guys, the perception, one of the issues we have on the continent is how we perceive things. I'll give you an example. When Ebola happened, Lagos did better for Ebola than, was it Dallas, right? But Africans do not accept the goodness of their actions. They ascribe it out. They say they give glory to God, which is true. God was very helpful. They give glory to foreigners, but the locals that tried didn't get credit. So our mindset needs to change. In the US, it's called lobbying. It's called K Street. They are professional lobbying organizations. Their job is to bribe, but the clean one. They lobby you to agree to put something in the constitution of the US.
Okay, so quickly, allow me to jump in. Sorry to interject. What are your thoughts practically in terms of bribing to getting my license? Maybe you said it, I didn't get it quite clearly.
Yeah, I don't think anybody should bribe. I don't agree with bribing. I do not agree with bribing. But
ethically or realistically?
No, but I do believe in lobbying. Now, what's lobbying, right? Lobbying is that if I want to get somebody, a very senior person, to get things for me, I'll get you for a dinner, a buffet dinner at the biggest hotel in Lagos, the best one, right? I will spend X amount of naira or dollars on your head for a nice, proper dinner. I will not give you an envelope. So most Africans give cash. That is bribery, because somebody else gives more cash, they beat you. Next more cash, beat you. So that dinner with that senior person, I'll reserve a private room at the best hotel in the country with a wine cellar. And you eat whatever you want. The respect you get is more than how much cash I give you. Now it's expensive, but nobody will do it that way.
Okay.
Right? So that's the point. So I don't believe in bribery at all, but I do believe that Khadija's language tip works. But for me, I don't want to tip in cash either. It's how do you give respectful engagement to these people? And a nice, well-packaged dinner does amazing things. Back to you, Harris.
Okay, thank you. Just one comment from my perspective on this one. Where I'm from in Cameroon, somebody would say, if I were to translate it, that dinner we don't eat that dinner. You know what I'm saying? As in, yeah, that won't change my life. You know what I mean? But let's just leave it as that. And I appreciate your answers. That's good food for thoughts for sure. And let's move on to the second case study. First of all, just by show of hand, was this The answers, were they helpful, or did you want to spend more time? Good, bad, no? Yeah. Cool. All right. All right. Cool. All right. The second case is I moved back from abroad to start my business. I have stacked up some cash, stacked up some savings, and then the question really here is about quality of life, right? There's certain countries, like for example in Nigeria, at least in Lagos, where energy power supplies is known to be a big deal, known to be a problem. But really, the cost of living, if you want to keep the same standard of living that you have in the West back home, that'll be very expensive. At the same time, you need to have money to run to start your business. How do you manage your um, your lifestyle essentially? Okay, let me see. Did I get it wrong here? Yes, I got it wrong. Sorry, guys, I mixed that up.
Did you? I thought you were. That's. Are you sure you mixed up?
Yeah, that I wanted to get the case with the lifestyle sorry case, not the one with. Let me. Sorry.
Went to the exchange rate one first.
No, because you touched on it already, so I think we could go straight to
Lifestyle one.
the lifestyle one.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sorry, this is the one. So the setup is the same. The case is the same. The question is how to adjust moving back from a business and personal perspective. Again, you have some cash that you've saved up. You don't want to burn it too fast because you needed to run your business or start your business to live your life, but the lifestyle is different, or the quality of life is different, or slightly more expensive. I hope I'm making sense. Now, the options are, number one, do you keep the same lifestyle as you have in the West, which will be a little bit more, obviously, it'll burn your money a lot quicker, a lot faster, but at least you maintain that lifestyle. Number two is you try and travel back and forth between where you are, because you don't want, say in Africa, where you don't want to spend too much money on fixed costs, say, a lease, a rent, a car, whatever. So you go back and forth. And the third one is to really go low key and say, okay, I'm in it to win it. So I'm basically going to go low key on my expenditure and stick around. EJ, do you want to add to it? Did I mix it up?
No, I think you're right. So I'll just add a few more points to it.
Sure.
So the option one is, you want to maintain your lifestyles. You guys are on the West now. And by the way, Aries, if you don't mind, let's some of the folks join a little later. I don't know where they stay at. So if you don't mind, Patrick, where are you located now? Are you in Toronto? Are you in Canada? Are you in the US or in Germany? You are still on mute.
I'm in the US.
Okay, where in the US, if you don't mind asking?
I'm a student. I'm at Duke University, so I'm in Durham now.
Okay, got it. And there is a Soledad Drago. I don't know if I'm showing the name, but yeah, where are you at, if you don't mind?
I'm in California.
California, okay.
Yeah, the name is Severin. Severin, yeah.
Severin, okay, got it. And then we have a Dimitri and Pasa. Dimitri, please, where are you at?
I'm in Canada.
Okay.
Toronto.
Got it. And we have a Makida Pasti who just joined. Makida, can you hear us? Maybe
That's
not.
fine.
All right.
Oh yeah. Oh, so she's about to answer. Where you from? Where you at?
Yeah. Okay. So, Aries, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead, man.
So the point is, you move out from Canada, from Germany, from the US back to continents, be it Nairobi, like Clara, be it Ida moving back home to Burkina Faso, be it whoever it is, right? The cost to have the same quality of life in the West is very high because it's not as demand and supply. The demand is low, supply is low, demand is high, right? Now, do you want to, I'm currently in Lagos, right? There's no power in Nigeria. I have 3 generators, right? 2 petrol, 1 diesel. 3. It doesn't make sense. They have to have 3 generators, right? Every country have their own problem. That's a massive cost. But I chose my office where I don't have the 24-hour.
You're going to give him some hints. Let him go, and then when we come back, you can tell your story.
Yeah. So, but my thing is maintain your lifestyle in the West. West is all packaged, right? Number 2 is do a split, right? So Dimitri flies in from Canada to his home country or his Thai country 2 weeks every 3 months, right? Ida is back 2 weeks every 2 months. So you come in and struggle, you go back and enjoy. Come in and struggle, back and enjoy. Number 3 is go cheap mode, right? Empty your bank account, land your country, and be like, screw it, this guy, like I will suffer whatever. Trust me, it's rough.
Okay, that's
so
good.
Back to you guys.
All right, perfect. Let's get into rooms. I hope the case makes sense. Looks like we are all back. Are we? Yes, we are. Okay, let's start with was Serge, were you the same team as Medika and Clara?
I was with Khadija and Clara.
Okay, so I want to hear Serge first because I like the way you were going. So go ahead and let us know your thoughts around how you would manage that.
Yeah, so we spoke about going low key, but we also spoke about projecting a certain way. And Clara brought it very nicely together by stating that it actually depends on the type of business that you're doing. If you are doing business where there is significant dependency on business development as it relates to building networks, and networks are going to carry you and open doors for you, there is a need to project a certain allure back on the continent. It's hard for people to take you seriously if you are projecting a very, very modest stature. So you may have to have a big office, well air conditioned, secretaries, right? You may have to basically just show the cards that you're here for business and you are already well off to some extent. But if you're having a business that will just carry its own, for instance, farming business, where there are limited dependencies on business development, you may go low key, make sure your cash and your savings go as long as possible.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all.
Thanks. Makeda, I think that's how you pronounce this. I hope I didn't get it right. Do you want to go ahead for your team? If you can unmute yourself, please.
Okay, hi. So I'm actually just coming on and trying to just kind of catch up with everything. So I'm thinking that I was actually in a particular group,
Okay.
right? And you guys were talking about maybe how to start like actual businesses in Africa. Is that what was going on?
Yeah. So
I'm actually just coming on.
That's cool. Who was on her team? Was it Dimitri and no?
I think I saw Serge and Clara, I believe.
Oh, that's the same
Is
team?
who I saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Ida, you want to go ahead, please? I guess you're on a different team, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mostly we choose number 3 because like we take all the options, like when you want to go back and forth, you're gonna increase your expenses. Also, in number 3 is not like it's not like you're going like cheaper, but if you want to really focus on your business, you have to make some sacrifices before your business started. And if you really focus on your business, just on a business, you can start it better, and then in the future you can have a comfortable life.
Got it. Thank you. EJK, you can probably go ahead and wrap it up. What are your thoughts around those proposed line of thinking? And then we're going to spend about 10 minutes towards the end. We have another 20 minutes or so. So go ahead, man.
Yeah, so great conversation. I'm loving the energy with this group. It's amazing, even though it's a very short time. So I was taking notes as you spoke. So group one talks about depends on the business. I think Serge and Clara on point and the team. Sometimes you need to show the cards. You got to have the card, the office, the profile, right? When people come in, they will understand that you're here to engage, right? But that also costs a lot of money, right? So any capital city on the continent that you try to have that right away is not cheap. From Burkina Faso to Kenya to Ghana to Nigeria to Ivory Coast, wherever, right? So it's a lot of money. So the question is, do you have enough money to devote that much money to have that good office downtown, pay the high rent, and compete with multinationals, because that's where they all are, to be able to show the cards, right? If you can, excellent. If you cannot, are there ways to still show a profile without spending that much, right? So I've done it as well. So for right now, my office is not in the highbrow downtown or the expensive parts of Lagos. It's not, right? Intentionally so. For those who know Nigeria, Lagos has two sides, island and mainland. Island is where the money is. That's where the British landed. That's where the downtown is, financial capital. The mainland is urban sprawl, right? My office is on the mainland, not on the island, right? But for me, I use, as I said, because I planned out my exit over time, the days I was working for my old company, I was a big guy. I spent all my time on the island. I was a guy that would come into Nigeria and I would get, bodyguards, escorts, right? Because my company would not let an American come to Nigeria for business without escorts. So I was glad I got that. So I was able to engage with this high profile individual. So all my friends, my network is on island. Intentionally so. When I quit, I found something cheaper on the mainland. So I was able to still build that network. That's show the cards before leaving. And then I found something that's not as expensive, not in the slums, of course. Very good place, but not the highbrow, high rise of the island. That's what I did. So I agree that option group one is on point, that you can do that, but just look at your cash flow, look at how much you have, look at your profitability, because the challenge, and I will get to this in the Q&A, is how much money you have, how long will it last before you become profitable? Most people don't plan that very well. They'll run out of gas in the tank, and they crash. Group two, go low key. That's fine as well. Great point. But low-key is extremely challenging. If you are used to the life we are used in the West, low-key is rough. It's emotionally draining. Shit doesn't work the way it works in the US or Canada or Germany, right? Low-key, you have to do everything yourself. So imagine yourself flying from California, from Toronto, from Cologne, Germany, and then landing to Abidjan, landing to Ouagadougou, landing to Lagos, landing to Nairobi, and then you are in a place whereby surprisingly, there is none of the amenities you want to have. You got to build them yourself, rent them yourself, hire them yourself, train them yourself, the staff, the support systems. It's tough. So do you have that emotional stamina to go through that hell, right? Sometimes it's a lot. So there's, up and down both ways. So for me, my last comment is that even though I do low-key, and that's why I'm still able to pay salaries despite coronavirus, my team has not been furloughed because I've saved my cash flow appropriately. But I am able to use my own time to build the system, the network I need to be able to still not have low-key support when in low-key. So back to you, Eric.
Okay, I do want to ask you a quick question, follow up on that quickly. Can you give us a sense of what you mean by rough? Because obviously this is all subjective, right? Maybe for you, rough is going from a Ferrari to a Benz. Maybe maybe it's going from a Benz to walking. Can you give us a sense of what it is so we can adjust?
Yeah, every country is different, right? I'm not from Burkina Faso. I've not been there, but I've been to Abidjan, I've been to Kenya, I've been to many East African countries. So I will not give an example for these countries that I'm not native of.
And specifics are about you. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, man.
Power, right? And if my office was on the island, on those high-end places, you have uninterrupted power because you have these massive generators that switch off whenever power goes off. So it's linked to the grid, right? That you never have power out. Once the grid goes off, automatically it picks it up, right? So the elevators are always working. Your systems will never stop. We have to pay a premium for that. As I mentioned earlier, I have to have 3 generators, 2 petrol, 1 diesel. So I have to fund that myself, but it's still cheaper for me to fund those 3 generators and hire someone, a security guy or a gate man or whatever, that turns them on when power goes to my office, right? But it's tough because this security, this gate man, whatever, this guy that turns the power on is quite not the sharpest guy in the block, all right? So he's not doing it appropriately. Sometimes he forgets, sometimes he's sleeping, you have to like wake him up, whatever, and that's the problem. So I don't have that luxury of uninterrupted power, but you have to deal with it. Now, sometimes the generators need to be fixed. There was a day, an example, I was having a high-profile guest coming to my office, and at the time I only had 2 generators, 2 petrol, before I got a diesel one. And the one blew up, literally, because the staff did not change the plug. The other one wasn't working because there was no petrol. And I had someone literally 5 minutes in my office, and there was no power. And it's Africa, right? It's hot. The air conditioning wasn't working. If I was on those high-end areas, I would not have that problem. So when you are in the lower-end areas or not expensive parts, you have to pay for these things and fund them. It becomes tougher to manage your realities. And sometimes you get embarrassed, right? Water, for example, at high-end offices, somebody makes sure that the tank is always full. Right, at my office building, somebody does that, but not somebody that's very, very intelligent. So sometimes the tank is not appropriately. And then guess you have a client who wants to use a bathroom and the toilet is not flushing. It has happened to me. Right? So you and these are facts.
Okay.
Right?
Good.
So these are the realities that you have to figure out what to pay for. But as I said, I'm still able to save money and pay my team. I have 3 offices in Nigeria, Lagos, Kano, and Enugu, so north, east, and west. Right? I still have some gas in the tank, but I've sacrificed all the comforts of life. Go ahead, please,
perfect. No, that's perfect. That's the level of detail that I wanted to get to, because when people talk about lifestyle, it may be really not only relative but vague. So appreciate you going to the details. Let's get to the last segment around Q&A. It's a small group, so you could just put your hand up. As you notice, I should have mentioned it, but hopefully you noticed in the invite, I extended the session to by half an hour, which gives us ample time for your questions. So any questions around the room? Serge, is that a question? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up on that last point of JK to talk about allure and projection and housing. Okay, you start at JK. First of all, first question is: do you have a house in Nigeria, an actual house? Okay, or are you renting? And what advice would you give to individuals who want to start businesses back home? And let's say that they want to move back. Obviously, we know that building houses, there are a lot of benefits to doing that, but it's also a cash flow and liquidity sinking activity, right? You'll take, I don't know, $100,000, which you could have used to build a business and get it to prosperity, and you're sinking that into a real estate. However, on the flip side, typically, if you don't have a house, it goes back to the allure. people may not take you seriously because, you know, this guy doesn't even have a house. How could we talk business with him? So could you answer the question, do you have a house? And then the follow-up on, would you advise somebody who wants to start to build, buy a house, or save that cash for building the business?
Thank you very much. I was taking notes as you spoke. My response is quite simple. Unless your business is in real estate, do not build a house. Don't do it. But if your business is real estate, of course, that's your business. You build a house, you rent some of it out, that's your revenue making channel. So for me, I rent. I have my own land, I've bought land. I have more than multiple properties, land, fenced, gated. I have not built anything in it. It's a waste of money for me, right? I'll use the money to recruit teams. I've trained my team both locally and in Europe. I paid flight tickets, I paid training fees in Germany and so forth, in the UK for my staff. My core revenue, so for everyone, my 2 cents, I don't know it all, invest on your core revenue generating platform. If it's real estate, build a house, rent it out, that is your core revenue generating platform. If it's not, forget housing. In fact, don't even rent a good place. Rent a place that are just functional, basics. Use your savings, your investments, be it your own money, or to invest in the core revenue generating platform. If it's your team, train your team to the wazoo, right? If it's your equipment, technology, buy the best technology. Whatever it is that will make you the most money, do it, right? Because that will eventually get you a home, get you a house. Your office doesn't have to be grand. Make it functional, right? But brand yourself in a way that you are grand. So my office, I'm currently in my office right now, nothing too special. But when you're walking from the lobby to my office, you know where you walked into. But it's not fancy or anything. It's functional because my revenue core is my staff, my team. That's one. 2 is my equipment. So my team are well trained. I've got the best technology on the planet, right? That's what gets me money, not the brick and mortar. So I would not recommend that unless you are in the real estate business.
Thank you. Clara, you're next, but before then.
Sorry, does that respond to your question? Does that answer your question before to make sure I got it?
That's right on. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Clara, go ahead.
Okay. You've talked about building multi-generational companies, you know, and the experience that you have with that. But there are a number of us who are students, you know, who are looking into starting out, and maybe the idea of that amount of capital and investing that amount isn't realistic at this point. But as you mentioned, you know, 5 years from now will be too late. So what can we do now? Like, do you have any ideas for small money investments? Maybe if it's coming together to do that, or if it's something that we can have in mind, or if it's something, because you also have, you have experience in different continents, you know, maybe you have some financial investments advice, just ways that we can start off now and not really push it, you know, years down the line when we have decades of experience.
So this question is interesting because the topic of today is around finding opportunities where, what's the word? Essentially in emerging markets. So this one goes above and beyond the health space, but hopefully you can give us some good nuggets. Go ahead, Ejike.
Yeah. So thanks so much, Clara. You promised me have a long list of questions, so I was a little worried when you say Clara. I'm like, oh boy, my life is over. But you're right. So for colleagues, friends, my sisters and brothers that are still at the student level or masters, postgraduate, PhD level, and so forth, what I would say is a couple of things. One is investments are one way, right, I've struggled to get investments for African businesses in health. So I don't know, Clara, maybe you can share a bit more about what you are thinking of, if you want, on this platform. And for healthcare on the continent, it's tough to find Western investors because the African narrative has been terrible for health. What they see is HIV, they see tuberculosis, they see TB, they see malaria, and something else, right? That's what they see. So that's where Bill Gates Foundation comes in. The Bush Foundation, whatever foundation could get into it, right? So for me, I know people that have raised money for health. This guy, 54 Gene, raised a bunch of millions last couple of months, right? A couple of people have raised money, but it's not as broad as it gets. In the US, somebody comes with a stupid idea and they raise a bunch of millions, right? Something like Snapchat, which I don't understand, right? So there are lots of companies in the US that raise loads of money, right? But not Africa. So I found out that I'm not trying to get into the whole thing about George Floyd or what's happening in the US right now, but for some of us, to raise money in healthcare has been a bit tough. Now, if it's technology, is different. So I'm health technology, but it's health. But
Help
it's
me.
Go ahead.
Sorry, let me interject quickly. I just want to move up in terms of outside of funding, right? Where do you see, if I understood you correctly, Clara, where do you see opportunities for folks who don't have thousands of dollars to invest, if at all? The answer could be, well, stay wherever you're at, you know what I mean? But where do you see opportunity in emerging markets?
I see it everywhere. Honestly, I believe that whatever idea you have, once done, probably can work. The question is, how do you want to do it? So for Clara, who's finishing her master's program, I would like to discuss with you. We can, you and I and Serge and Aries can have a conversation later on. And Aries and I talked about yesterday. We can have discussions, we call it mentorship, partnership conversations offline. But the question will be, what do you want to do? Once you tell me, even though you're still finishing your program, we can now have a multi-year plan, right? The initial step could be start developing the insights you have, right? Start building the partnerships you have. So you might still be in school, might still have your first job, might still getting something started. But during that time, you are building that network. That's what I did myself, right? So I realized I went to Africa. So from after the US, I went to Latin America because I went to work in emerging markets that is not home for me, right? After that, before doing Africa and Asia, right? So you can build that network because, and Aris, I'm seeing your hand, but just 1 second. Because for me, it's about resources, not necessarily cash, right? So my first partner, that my biggest partner today, was not because how much money I had. This guy is in Germany trying to find my partner for orthopedics, which is what my biggest business now. He's a Cameroonian guy, lives in Germany, runs the Africa business for the company. He was trying to find a partner for Nigeria, could not find one except people that want to do buy and sell. He's a professional. He doesn't want to buy. Nigerians will money at you to buy and sell. He doesn't want that. He wants a business development partner. Somebody introduced him and I had a PowerPoint slide. On my slide 3, the first was my name, intro. 2, 3, he said, this is exactly what I'm looking for. That was it.
Okay.
Guy had no idea how much in my bank account.
Let's make sure we share the floor a little bit. Khadija, thanks for your answer, your question as well. Khadija, I understand you had a question.
Yeah, I have a question. I understand that you had like a transition period between the US and Africa. So you lived in Dubai and then did like some back and forth. How long was the transition period? And when did you realize that, did you know that you were ready to move back to resign first, to leave your job, move back to Africa and be fully in your business, work full time on your business?
Yes, no, great point. When did I so how long was that? It took me about maybe 3 years on paper, but in 2 years, 2.5, I was done. right? So I took that role. I ran English for South Africa for a couple of years. I did the Asia market for a while. About 2.5, 3 years, I have gotten the experience I wanted to get and the relationship I wanted to get. Remember, I didn't come into it randomly to enjoy my life. I had the perks of life, as I mentioned in the YouTube video. You know, the stock options, first class flights, brand new car every year. I wasn't there for the cars and whatever. I was trying to build my network. Once I was done, I was ready to go, but I could not resign. Because if I resign, I get nothing as an expat. I had to be fired. But my numbers were still good. I was still performing. So the question was, how do I, because when I get fired, I get a package. I wanted every single dollar I could get. If I resign, I get nothing. If I get fired, I get a package as an expat, right? So I had to figure out how the hell will this guy fire me, because I did not want to stop performing, because my network, my credibility is still my name. So my peers cannot think I am no longer performing. So eventually they screwed up. And I told them, because of these activities, long story cut short, my division was at the point run by an Afrikaans, a white South African who hated black folks, and started getting rid of every single black person. So I was waiting for him to screw up a few times, and I told the company, because of this guy's behavior, I can no longer be here anymore. I want to separate. And they got to package me out. I got the package, right? Okay. So that's the process. So, but it did take me about 2 years, and I was just one second. During that 2 years, while I was doing business relationship, what I was doing was to validate the business. Does this make sense? Will this work? Are there enough customers in this space? Is there enough business in this space? How are my competitors doing? Can I fight my competitors? Do I want to fight them? Is it worth it? I use that to make it work. And Aris, do you mind if I share a slide on my laptop or no?
Yeah, it looks like you could go ahead, man, and share your share.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, maybe while it's sharing, I want to ask a question. I want to piggyback on what Khadija just shared. Okay. I think you spoke about things that you've done on the tail end of, not the tail end, right? Right before you transition from working from Abbott to actually setting up your business. But could you talk about what you did earlier, meaning back in 2013, 14, 15, what were the steps and the strategy that you embarked on in order to convince your company to relocate you to Dubai? What were the challenges there related? And how have you seen your trajectory from Abbott to starting your own business? How has it differed from reality? It's quite a bit of a package, but maybe you could unbundle it. Yeah.
Yeah, quite packaged, but fair enough. So it was, I think, 2014. Well, 2013. When I joined Abbott after business school, I was part of an elite program called the MDP, Management Development Program, right? And MDP allows you to have access to very senior executives. In fact, the executive vice president that report to our CEO. So all of these EVPs, you have access to them. That cuts out the nonsense of corporate America. You don't have to go through your boss, whatever. You have straight access, right? And as one of us, I don't want to feel as a sharp, person of color, right? That chance, I cannot screw it up. So I asked one of these EVPs to be my official mentor. And he told me that he doesn't really do this, but he agreed. Before I did that, I proved myself. So just a few minutes, I was at dinner in Chicago, and all the EVPs were there. It was an MDP dinner. All these big guys were there, right? And I met up with this guy. I didn't know his face. I knew his name. I asked him, what's your plan for Africa? That guy ran a division of Abbott, one of the biggest ones. He said, I'm thinking about the continent. I'm not quite sure. I have a team, that looking into it. I said, so what are your thoughts? He's like, well, I'm hearing about corruption. I'm hearing about this. I'm hearing about that, right? So every single point he brought up, I had a counter for him, right? When it's corruption, I will tell him that India, China are very corrupt. Yet we are big in India, China, because we've spent time to understand who to work with. He will tell about security and safety, that he would put TV on and see Al-Shabaab in Kenya, Boko Haram in Nigeria, whatever. Right? I told him that Venezuela is quite dangerous, and I've been to Venezuela for work. And when I landed in Caracas, I had 2 armored vehicles come get me. Leaving the airport, I had 2 military guys walk me out. I was in one vehicle, the other was, and I told him it's not because I was important. I was a very junior staff. But if anything happens to me in Caracas, New York Times will say about an employee shot in Caracas, our stock price will go down by 0.1%. Somebody just lost billions of dollars. That's not security. He would tell me this, because I've done my homework. And I told him, cut an Africa division out. That was how this guy took Africa out of the EMEA, all these groups, and I moved to Dubai. So you have to do your homework. You have to be the best at what you do. And you gotta be, once that opportunity shows up, you cannot let it slip. That night we were speaking, he said, you know, I'm sure I'll pass across again, no commitments. I went back to my hotel room, sent him an email, a McKinsey report, a PwC report that was comparing Latin America and Africa. Well, then I was working Latin America. These are reports he cannot say no to. I said, please let me know when you like to speak. I'm happy to talk more about Africa. I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. At the point he said, all right, let's talk. And I didn't want to talk. So go ahead.
Good enough, Serge?
Now, this is terrific. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
What I wanted to elicit.
So last thing on this area is, I didn't want to talk. I had a PowerPoint for him, right? I presented Africa business for him. I said, the time is now. And that's what happened. So you have to be ready. You have to plan these things, do enough reading and research. And once that opportunity comes in, you take it. That's a touch. I'm happy to discuss details, different call, different conversation, or different group.
Okay, cool. I think we started late, so we may have about a minute or two if you want to show your slide. Or did you say you were okay with it? You done? You talked about it already? JK?
Just quickly, is a slide that I want to just to respond to what Khadija's question. So let me just pull this up, just one page.
Yeah, take a minute or two, and then we can wrap it up right after that.
Yeah, no worries. I'm pulling it up now. All right, so you might have to let me share a screen. Got it. So that's, Khadija, that's your question, the process. Right, so initially was process only, right? Next phase was patient management. We added that, so it's plus patient management, and then plus patient care. So at this phase, 2014-15 was figuring out how the market works. So I was doing my Dubai thing, and I spent 3 weeks, a month on the continent. Sometimes I go back to Dubai and I'll forget the passcode of my apartment keypad. I'm not lying. Because I spend more time in Accra, in Lagos, right, Sierra Leone, whatever, than in my apartment in Dubai. So I will go home sometimes, I will forget the passcode. I had to take a picture of it and save it in my favorites to remember. But that was one of the time. So this, the 1450 is California, Dubai. This was Dubai, right? And then this was when I was getting out. So it was a phase-wise process. So for everyone on this team, I'm happy to discuss with you guys on what I've done, more my mistakes, and I'm happy to work offline to build your steps, right? And make sure it's interlinked. So the first step, has to be a phase 1, whatever it is you want to do. And then you have phase 2, you have phase 3, or phase 5, 6, and 7, but it's really critical. And as you can see, from selling products, we were able to get the clinicians. So the list of customers, our competitors today, we know all of them because we have just they buy from us before. So we know their strengths, their weaknesses. Phase 2, patients and surgeons became our partners. People come to us, say, what clinic do I go to? We validated that the business works, the money is there, they can pay. Phase 3 is now we'll have our own patient, our own clinic. And that's what really matters. So happy to talk more, but back to you, Aries.
Thank you.